I've always admired how the fondness that comes from nostalgia steels itself against the future. The things we loved when we were younger often get reframed in later life as our perspective changes. The value of something might diminish or be offset by caveats of time and energy. We might realize glaring issues with something or someone we once loved, or find that as our tastes move on, a particular something no longer hits the same buttons it once did. But the memory of it rarely changes. They call it rose-tinted glasses as though to dismiss its impact, but the reason we remember things from our past so warmly is because we remember who we were at that single point in time, and we remember what those experiences meant to us, how they shaped us. For me, that particular something and the memories I have of it is Disgaea, and my relationship with the series today is, well, complicated. Disgaea is not for the faint of heart. To really get the most out of this series requires time, lots of time, and a willingness to do fairly extensive research, to read countless forum posts and FAQs, pad and pen at the ready to work out how best to proceed on that long, tiresome journey to level 9,999. While the story campaigns often start out slow, with the final boss's level usually in the low 90s, once you hit the endgame proper, it becomes very clear that there's no ceiling here, or at least not in any meaningful sense. Even reaching the fabled 4 nines isn't the end of your journey, with equipment aptitudes, reincarnation bonuses, and diving into the randomly generated dungeons contained within your own weapons, all contributing to increasing your stats into the millions and even billions. The numbers quickly become more important than the strategy. Disgaea's major selling point is that your character's growth, as expressed in numerical form, increases exponentially until the point where even your weakest attacks are dealing damage in the millions. Aesthetics are a huge part of this experience. These games are ripe with cool character designs and sublime attack animations that quickly escalate to the point where, by comparison, the famously over-the-top super attacks from other games feel a bit dull. It fits the identity of the series like a glove, both the art and the numbers. You frequently play protagonists who are demon lords or universe-killing warriors, so of course your fists should be able to level entire galaxies, and of course that should be represented in-game by absolutely enormous numbers. There's just one problem though. With the destination so far on the horizon, the individual steps of the journey quickly multiply to the degree that it's difficult to see any tangible sense of progress. Getting the 4 nines doesn't feel much like a victory when you're still outclassed stats-wise by millions. The difference between 1,000 damage and 10,000 damage might as well be nothing, and without an encyclopedic knowledge of the game's inner workings, the path to finally being able to challenge Baal, the big bad who is the final encounter of each game, can be long. Really long. Disgaea hides many of its most compelling loops behind layers of challenge, obfuscation, and repetition. In order to get the most out of these games, you have to show a willingness to repeat actions ad nauseum, to settle into a particular map and spam actions hundreds and even thousands of times over. In a very ungenerous interpretation, this is grind at its absolute worst. You will eventually learn, rather bafflingly, that the true aim of the game is to reduce the amount of time you have to spend playing it, to more efficiently bring a new character up to snuff, but a surprising amount of legwork is required in order to get to this stage. We'll take the most recent entry, Disgaea 5, as an example for this. While the final fight with Baal is quickly unlocked in the post-game, in order to stand a chance you first need to unlock the Carnage dimension. The triggers to activate this are a bit cryptic, involving completing certain side quests and passing certain laws in the Dark Assembly, and strangely getting all the big bads from the main campaign to join your team. But once made available, not only is it an extremely useful place to train, but it's also where all the highest level equipment is. In order to even stand a chance in the Carnage dimension, the game gives you a series of maps called Martial Training, where enemies are placed in convenient patterns to maximize experience gains. You can bolster your weapons and armor through the item world. By diving deeper into these dungeons, you increase the base stats of your equipment, and by subduing and combining innocence, you can move additional buffs around to suit your needs. You can speed up the rate at which you level using the in-game cheat shop and through applying statisticians to your desired character's equipment. With a decent setup and some enemy level adjustments on the way, you can get from level 1 to 10,000 -1 in around 60 to 70 runs of the map Martial Training 4, or about 20 minutes of repetition. With a good team, you can run the gambit, increasing your own stats and those of your equipment through carefully curated loops that allow you to hit your peak in a matter of hours. And it still won't be enough. In order to get your characters to where they might even remotely have a chance at facing this game's version of Baal, you need to go deeper. You need to master subclasses and make use of reincarnation bonuses to increase your base stats, assign yourself to special teams to increase stat growth at the expense of experience, pair your equipment's rarity levels to get match bonuses, equip the right abilities, learn the right spells and skills, and do countless laps of the bizarre board game stylings of the Kara world. Even with optimizations and an in-depth knowledge of the game's more hidden systems, we are talking dozens of hours of preparation to reduce yourself to a few hours of grind. And eventually, when you do reach that fabled end result, then what? Disgaea's biggest problem is that the impact of its numbers diminishes so quickly to the point that they might as well not exist in the first place. So rapidly it becomes clear that the journey doesn't matter, only the destination, and it's supremely frustrating because for a strategy series, and at times a brilliant one, there isn't much strategy involved in these endgame fights. Disgaea is at its best when it takes your high-level characters and powerful attacks and big, strong weapons and says, fuck you, do this puzzle instead. Where raw damage output can't win a map, the brain has to take over. Where you have to understand how the geosymbol system works or how to put the enemy displacement effects of your attacks to good use. Earlier entries excelled at this, with numerous maps featuring unusual wind conditions or enemies that were basically invincible until you solved a puzzle on the stage. Beating these handcrafted maps felt great because while the grind helped buffer you against your opponent's attacks, it didn't trivialize the challenge. You still had to put the detective work in. But this is not what puts proverbial bums on seats for Disgaea. If strategy is what you're after, there are a myriad of better games out there to serve your needs. None of them let you reach level 9,999 though, and there is something about those big numbers that is extremely satisfying to watch, even if they don't really mean anything in the long run. So, what's the solution here? As you can probably gather from the title of this video, there isn't one, because the problem is so entrenched within the series' identity at this stage. To attempt to fix it would be to change the very nature of the beast. Disgaea prides itself on being the series that looked at four-figure numbers and said, this is not enough. And the fact that the high ceiling to its statistical representation goes in some way to reflect the anime tropes in its story makes perfect sense. It's what fans want, and it may seem a bit basic, but because the particulars change with each iteration, it is the aspect of the game that ends up being the most compelling. A different type of strategy to the one you were probably expecting, where part of the joy and satisfaction comes from experimenting with new schemes to help more efficiently mold your team of miscreants into a shining platoon of god killers. Do you know about the Carnage Eclair method? Because I certainly didn't until a few weeks ago. It's the most efficient way to train your team, and I only found out about it thanks to the efforts of the community that's built up around the game. It is this experimenting and refining and sharing of ideas that creates something that I would strongly argue is a fundamental part of the Disgaea experience. It's kind of like Dark Souls, only instead of lore it's spreadsheets, and instead of Vati Vidya it's a bored pharmacy technician from the Midlands excitedly telling you all about this. Disgaea has problems for sure, but it's not just a game, it's the conversation around the game too, and I don't think that concept is given enough credit. As much as I find myself frustrated at the legwork required to see the series at its apex, when I saw the even bigger numbers splash across the screen during the recent Disgaea 6 reveal, I couldn't help but smile. Level 99,999 you say? You son of a bitch, I'm in. I may not be the same person I was back in the mid-2000s, happy to throw hundreds of hours at futile efforts and dozens more reading up on other people's experiences with these games, but I look back on that time with a fondness that has remained, even as my tastes have refined. Disgaea may lack finesse and the sort of tactical complexity one would expect from a strategy series, but it commits to an idea of what it wants its identity to be, warts and all, to give those that have the time and energy, as well as those who wish they still did, an experience really unlike any other. Grind is good here. Big numbers trump clever puzzles, and those attacks that shatter the universe and all who reside within it, they raise a smile, even if it is just for their nostalgic value. I can't wait to see what lies in store for Disgaea 6, and what the community comes up for it. Here's to the next 200 hours of my life down the pan.